Hello, and welcome to this, I believe, 11th lesson now on Inspector Calls. And today we're going to talk about Gerald Croft. So, specifically, we're going to talk about who Gerald is, what does Gerald represent, and what does Priestley try to teach us through Gerald's character? And finally, why is Gerald such a complex character? He is he does represent quite a few things. And he's kind of six of one and half a dozen of the other in the play. All right. So anyway, well, we'll start out with what's obvious. What do we know about Gerald? Just by reading the play, the opening scene, we know that Gerald is engaged to Sheila Burling, the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Burling. Okay, but as the conversation unfolds, we learn a little bit more about Gerald's background. Gerald is he's from a much higher class than the Burlings. Maybe not so much in terms of monetary wealth and assets. The Burlings are very well off, but Mr. Burling, he's the first generation of that wealth. He would be what's called new money. He had to work very hard. He built his business up. And that is why the Burlings are now so wealthy, but they do not have the tradition of wealth that Gerald's family has. He is from what they call the aristocracy, the aristocratic class. They have generations and generations of wealthy, privileged people behind them. Right, so that's the difference between Gerald and the Burling, Gerald's family and the Burling family. Now, Gerald is also, his family is a competitor of the Burlings. Now, some people might think, why are they so thrilled that Sheila is marrying Gerald? Now, Gerald is just about every mother's dream. In the beginning, what we learn of him, he's very wealthy, he's very good looking, he's established. The parents are absolutely overjoyed that Sheila is engaged to him. But he's from a competitive family. So why? I think you'd be furious. Well, it's the union of the two. This is bringing two families together. So, first of all, they can combine assets, contacts, but it's that name, it's that aristocratic name of Gerald, the Croft family. Now the Burlings are related to the Crofts, so that raises the status even further of the Burling name. Like I said before, the Burlings have only been in wealth one generation, but now they've got that alliance with the Croft family. It raises their profile even higher. Right. So this is also rather symbolic of the old way of things. Kings would often marry their daughters off or their sons off to either allies of other royal houses to create alliances against their enemies. Sometimes they would marry their daughters off to enemies to create peace, create an alliance and create a lasting peace. So marriage was used as a tool to either create more wealth or to keep the peace. And this is what it's also doing here. Remember, these are old aristocrats, aristocratic ideas that they are still embellishing, even though this is the early 1900s. Okay, so again, this is increasing the material wealth of the Burling family, increasing business contacts, and also raising the status of the Burling name. So that is why they are so thrilled with the fact that Sheila is marrying Gerald Croft. Also the fact that he also does just appear to be a lovely gentleman, very gentlemanly in nature, good-mannered, and of course, wealthy and handsome. Now we learn that Gerald isn't all what he seems. Okay, so again, he's complex, he's young, he's good-looking, wealthy, and from a well-respected family. From the beginning of the play, we see Gerald as an ideal choice of husband for Sheila or any woman. But we do learn that he is flawed. He's not perfect. We learn of his affair with Eva Smith, or Daisy Renton, as he knew her. We know that he does have a heart, though. He doesn't seem to be these these cruel aristocratic people. His relationship does develop with Eva, even though it's not really an extramarital affair, but he's cheating on Sheila with her. But he does seem to have a genuine fondness for Eva. they meet when she is trying to get a job in some kind of bar or place that he says, this is not suitable for you. You need something better. And he is actually trying to help her because there is that genuine fondness of it. Now, when he is called out as well, he doesn't try to deny his behavior. He admits to it. He doesn't condone it. Um, but does he apologize for it? Does he feel any remorse for what happens to Eva? Possibly a little bit, but he does not change to the effect that Sheila and Eric do. Sheila and Eric actually learn from their experience. They feel a lot of remorse for their role that they played in Eva's death, whereas Gerald kind of sits on the fence a bit. He doesn't seem to. And we'll get to how Priestley demonstrates that at the end of this session. Okay, so we've covered who Gerald is pretty well, and we see that there are, when we learn about his affair with Eva, there are some cracks in the armor. He's not the lovely, respectable gentleman that they would portray, but this behavior was accepted a lot more amongst the males in the upper classes of society. It was something that women just had to put up with because they had no choice. We talked about this in previous sessions. If a woman did this, her reputation would be destroyed. Okay, now there are some very interesting quotes that Gerald makes in the play, and it kind of shows how at first he starts out, at least he cared about Eva. At least he feels bad a little bit about what he did. So we think, well, there might be some hope for this guy. He at least shows a little bit of remorse for her. And he speaks very fondly of her. He says in the first circle here, here at the best mark. She was young, pretty, warm-hearted. She was intensely grateful. So he speaks very fondly of her. So he's very fond of her, and he is somewhat saddened by what happened to her. But now we move over to the next circle over here. He starts to show his true colors a bit more here when he says, I'm rather more upset by this business than I appear to be now. It's this word business that we're hitting. The business is this whole incident with Eva. So he's claiming he's upset, but he uses the phrase business. Eva's death is compared to business. We know Gerald is business oriented, of course. He agrees with Mr. Burley on how to run a business, but now he is saying that Eva Smith's death is business. It's nothing but business. I'm upset by this business. Like she's a business deal. So is he that remorseful about what happened to her if he's willing to put her on the same level as just a plain old business deal? I'm rather upset by this business. Right. Now he also, we know, is very old-fashioned in his style of business. He agrees with Mr. Burling's sacking of Eva. Now, he does not know who she is at the time, but he thinks he was well within his rights to do that. That is the way to handle employees. When they start taking a stand, you get rid of them. Again, that is symbolic of the old way of doing things. When, as we talked about with the suffragettes, when they started standing up for rights, they were put down, or they were tried to be put down. Same with the working classes trying to gain more against the upper classes. As much as they possibly could, they would put them down. Okay, and then the last quote here. There isn't any such inspector. We've been had. Now, this is where he really lets the audience down. He also checks to see, he phones ahead to see if there was a girl that died. He phones the infirmary to see if this had happened. So it looks like this whole thing with the inspector was some kind of illusion. There was no girl that died. There is no Inspector Gould. But his affair did happen. So the quote shows that he has not really changed. Okay, the fact that what happened may have been an illusion means it's okay to carry on as before. Well, okay, yeah, I had this affair, but the girl's fine. Everything's fine. We've been had. We're the ones that have been had here. It shows that he, despite the fact that he is the same age, generally the same age as Sheila and Eric, who have changed a lot, they feel a bit relieved, but they feel relieved that this poor girl hasn't died, more for her welfare than anyone else. He feels like, oh, okay, well, everything can carry on as before. We don't have to, gain anything from this experience. And he really lets the audience down. He had high hopes for Gerald. Right. So why is he important? What is Priestley trying to tell us about, using Gerald? Well, he uses Gerald to demonstrate the ways of the aristocracy. This privileged class can be very selfish and uncaring. They care only about themselves. Despite his youth, he doesn't change very much. Again, Sheila and Eric change quite a lot. They feel terrible about what happens to Eva. It prompts Eric, as we talked about when we did my lesson on Eric, he stands up to his father and his way of treating people and doing things. Sheila refuses to take Gerald back. Okay. He also uses Gerald to show that the old ways are hard to let go of once they are ingrained in somebody. Okay, so again, despite his age, he still has these old aristocratic ways ingrained in his mind, and he is struggling to change where the other two aren't. So he's relieved when it appears this whole thing isn't real. Like, oh, thank goodness. Sheila and Eric are more relieved that a girl hasn't died. He's more relieved that, oh, okay, well, maybe everything will be okay now. It can go on as before. And he demonstrates that by going to Sheila. He thinks Sheila will just forgive him. He expects her to just excuse his behavior. She does say, well, at least he was honest, and he was, but still, does it excuse what he did? He thinks it's acceptable because no real harm has been done. The girl has not died. She did not drink the disinfectant. None of this had happened. None of this really happened. So everything's okay. Never mind the fact that he's cheated on the woman he supposedly loved. He thinks no real harm's been done. He even says, everything's okay now, Sheila. Now we know that Sheila says no, not now. She doesn't say no, but she says not now, implying that no, everything's not okay. Things have to change. Right. Okay. So that is Gerald. I hope you enjoyed this session on Gerald. Again, he is quite a complex character. He starts out as something and he evolves kind of by the end of the play when we see what he's really like. He's really not that impressive. He's not a very good person. He's just in a very nice package. Okay, everybody. Again, I hope you are enjoying the sessions on Inspector Calls. Please do subscribe to my channel. I do have more lessons on Inspector Calls coming as my other playlists that you see. I will be updating those as much as possible. Please do subscribe. Please do comment. And thank you for watching.